Give it a shot.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. You know, the one time I didn't send it to you. I'll just have to do it next time.
Okay, I'd like to call our South Hill Town Council regular meeting for Monday, May the 9th to order, please. Shall we pray? Our most gracious Heavenly Father, as we gather here tonight, let us be mindful of the many blessings that we have, dear Lord. And dear Lord, lead and guide and direct us, and lead and guide and direct our leaders of our country as we go forward with the many opportunities that we have. And let us also be mindful, dear Lord, of the many blessings that we really have. And let us look at each one of them as truly a blessing. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Roll call, Anna.
Lily Fagan Spoon.
Here.
Alex Graham.
Here.
Gavin Honeycutt.
Present.
Dolores Lester.
Here.
Mike Moody.
Here.
Shep Moss.
Here.
Ben Taylor.
Here.
And Joseph Taylor.
Thank you, Anna. Okay, council, on the agenda before approval for motion for approval, I'd like to make some changes. There is an addition to the agenda. We will be given a police department update. It will be listed as item 12 after the municipal service report. And also, we will be removing item 8B, which is in reference to the shops of South Hill. They have deferred their time until the June council meeting. So do I have a motion for approval for the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Heroes are being added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial this spring, including 472 officers killed in 2021 and 147 killed in previous years. And whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed a proclamation which designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which that day falls as Police Week. Now therefore it be proclaimed that Dean Marion, Mayor of the town of South Hill, hereby designates May 15th through 2022 as Police Week in the town of South Hill, Virginia, and publicly salutes the service of law enforcement officers in our community and communities across the nation. Signed this day of May 2022, South Hill, Virginia. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and guests, at this time I'd like to introduce Steve Mulroy. Steve is the managing director of VML Vaco Finance, and he is here tonight to share information with us about our investments with VML Vaco. So the presentation is set up.
Great.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Mayor and council members, I appreciate the time tonight. And as Kim said, I'll be covering the Virginia Investment Pool, giving a little bit of an update on the fund, its recent performance, and hopefully address any questions that you may have. I do have a presentation that's on the screen, and so I'll jump right in. Just to kind of give a background on how the fund operates, it's a 1 to 3 year strategy, so it is mark to market. So as the interest rate changes in the market, the prices, the net asset value changes. So when interest rates falls, the prices rise, and the income that can be generated off that fund tend to fall, when interest rates are falling, because it's very dependent on the interest rate environment and what opportunities there are for investing in fixed income securities. The performance is measured on total return, which captures both the price and income. The price, when interest rates are falling, the value of those securities goes up, so your total return is higher than the income in that situation. But the opposite happens when interest rates rise, and we've been seeing that recently. As the last summer the Fed was saying that inflation was very transitory, but they've really kind of turned on a dime, and now they're trying to get ahead of the inflationary pressures, and they're raising rates, and there's forecasts for more interest rate hikes. When interest rates rise, the prices of the value of the securities fall. But the real benefit of, and the portfolio manager has expressed optimism about this, because he last summer was finding investments that were paying 20, 25, 30 basis points, or a third of a percentage point. Now the yields that he can find are 2.5% or in that range. So there's a lot more opportunity to make income. So with that volatility, the real benefit comes the ability to make more income. Total return, again, is based on the price change and the income. So in a rising rate environment, the price decline tends to be a drag on the total return. But I'm going to walk through some kind of points to consider, on the price action. We are in a rising rate environment. What does this volatility mean? In the 1 to 3 year strategy, a 1 percentage point change in interest rates, the value of the securities go in the opposite direction by 1.8. The average life, the average maturity of those securities in the portfolio, they're about 1.8 years. So a 1% change, in the interest rate levels leads to the opposite direction on the price of 1.8. So we're talking about relatively modest, in the scheme of investing. There's 30-year bonds that are a lot more sensitive to interest rate changes. Of course, there's stocks and other types of investments that are very volatile. So in the range of volatile investments, this is a very low volatility type investment. And I also want to add that all of the securities that are purchased are permitted securities by the state code, and the 1 to 3 year fund as a pooled investment of other local governments is an authorized investment. It's recognized in the state code of Virginia. So it's all very high quality, safe type investments. I think, this is a simple chart, but I think it drives home a point that in a falling rate environment, you're going to have the price appreciation, but you're going to have lower opportunity to make income. in the right side, the right bar, which is higher in this scenario, in a rising interest rate environment, you have the ability to make more income. And that's, kind of where we are now and where we've been heading is in a higher rate environment. And when you look at a fixed income portfolio such as this, income tends to be 95% or more of the total return. That price volatility tends to move up and down, and so it tends to be a wash over time through market cycles. And we always stress for local governments investing in this portfolio, it is not a 1 month, a 90-day or 6 month investment. It really needs to be for funds that you're setting aside for longer term, so that you can go through that market cycle. And there's a chart on here I'll show, but it really the price declines tend to be offset by price increases, and over time they tend to wash out, and it's really the income. So as we're in a higher interest rate environment, that is the real opportunity of this 1 to 3 year strategy to make attractive income relative to other shorter term investments. So from a best practice standpoint, the 1 to 3 year strategy is volatility is to be expected, but it's that investing through the market cycle that investors are rewarded with higher income. When interest rates are falling, that is an optimum time if you want to reposition your portfolio, because then you may even realize some gains. But when interest rates are rising as they have been recently, if you need the funds, you certainly have access to them. The monies are not locked up. But we would caution against that, because what are now paper losses would become realized losses. Not only that, you're also precluding the real benefit of this strategy is as interest rates are higher and you're leaving before the fund, right as we're entering into a higher coupon paying environment. So you're not getting the benefit of this strategy. So it's really kind of investing through longer term cycles and kind of managing when you move money in and out. And we always caution, we have a shorter daily liquidity pool for funds that you're going to need in less than a year or short term. Those are more appropriate for shorter term investments. This chart, I'll just keep moving. This chart just, interest rates have risen significantly. In the middle there, the 2 year, the interest rates have moved higher. They were in the 25 basis point range. They've moved now to, they're about 2.6%, the 2 year Treasury. We're investing in that 2 year and under range. So as you can see, there's been quite a jump since the start of the fiscal year, July 1st to May 6th, when this chart was created. And another thing I'll point out is the slope of the blue line. It's a lot steeper in the first 2 years. That benefits this portfolio because you're able to get higher return than a daily liquidity pool that is, just in the 1 month or 2 month and in. Those yields are a lot lower than you can get in a 2 year. So there's a number of things going on in the fixed income market that are beneficial for those who can invest longer term in the 1 to 3 strategy. This slide just looks at 2 different interest rate environments. This fund has been through this before, this rising rate environment. Back in 2016 to 2018, interest rates were rising. There was a negative total return, a negative price return of 1.2%. But as I said, the coupon payments, the income is a real driver, and the income on that in that scenario is 1.87 versus 1.16 in a 3 month T-bill, which is a proxy for an overnight daily liquidity fund. So it's generating more income, and if for those who could stay the course, then you see 2018 to December 2020, when interest rates were falling, the total return jumped quite significantly to 3.3%. The income also continued to outpace the 3 month T-bill. So again, the price return is going to go up, it's going to go down, it tends to be a wash over time. It's that income, through the different market periods that drives the return of the fund. This chart just takes a look at the 10-year track record of the indices. The 3-month T-bill is again a proxy for a daily liquidity pool. The average annual return over 10 years was 0.6%. You earned about a 0.5 percentage point more in a 1 to 3 strategy, but there is some volatility. So over the 40 quarters, there were 9 of those were negative returns. So again, we really stress that it is a fund to invest through market cycles at a minimum of a year to be able to enjoy the benefits of a 0.5%, when looking at history, a 0.5% of additional return. So, utilize the right way, it can benefit local governments. And again, the state code permits investing out to 5 years. So these are not, they're not, real long-term or extreme investments. It's the securities inside the portfolio are all double or AAA rated securities, or 60% are U.S. Treasury bonds. So it's all extremely high quality. So the volatility is all driven by changes in interest rate. I think this is a key slide in that it's really perspective when you're looking at this fund and its performance. If you look at the monthly returns, 25% of the monthly returns, and these are based on the 1 to 3 year strategy index, because going back 25 years, 25% of the monthly returns were negative. But if you step back and look at it on a quarterly basis, only 13%. If you step back a little farther and look at it, annual returns, only 1 out of the 25 was negative. So volatility, if you're looking at it from a kind of a broader view through market cycles, volatility is diminished, tremendously. So it's important not to kind of lock in on the monthly volatility, because that's really to be expected that there's going to be volatility. It's over time, it's a lot less volatile when you view it that way. This slide just updates the performance, through 2021, 5 years. Just 2 key measures here. Over the 3-year, some of the information I gave before based on indices and over long time periods, but in our fund itself, the 1 to 3 year strategy outperformed our liquidity pool by 1.1 percentage points. Sorry about that. Over the last 3 years, and 0.53 percentage points over the last 5 years. So we have a track record where, even though that's in rising and falling rate environments, in any given year, one fund may look better than the other, but over rolling periods, the 1 to 3 year strategy has generated more total return. This just brings that slide current, and it looks at the Q1 2022, as I'm sure you've all seen. The performance was negative 2.3%. But that's almost a mirror image of, that's why as rates were rising, as you see in the right-hand chart, but on the left side of the chart, rates were falling. That 1 to 3 year strategy outperformed the daily liquidity by 2.4. So again, the volatility tends to be a wash over time through market cycles, and I think this demonstrates, just that point. This is another slide that shows that income is the darker blue line, solid line that's increasing over time. This is a hypothetical $5 million investment over the last 5 years. The dotted line is the price return, or the total return, which is volatile, but it's that income that really drives return. And the total return has been below it and above it, and it's below it now. But looking at history, we fully anticipate at some point, and we can't predict when, that dotted line is going to turn back up. Putting that in context, through a cycle, the 1 to 3 year strategy has generated about 100,000 more in income, versus a daily liquidity pool. So again, it's that income that's the key to the performance. Let me jump ahead. I guess just kind of in wrapping it up, volatility is to be expected. It's a mark-to-market portfolio. It's all very high-quality securities in the portfolio. It's going to adjust as interest rates adjust. But, long-term investors have been rewarded by the income. And investing through market cycles is an important point. I would caution against selling as in a period where rates are rising and the price is down. You're really, two things are going to happen. You're going to lock in losses, and you're also going to prevent yourself from enjoying those higher interest rates that are now available to the portfolio manager. So in that, certainly a lot of details, but open it up to any questions that any have.
I got one, if I may ask. Do you manage our fund, or does somebody else manage the town's fund?
We are the administrator. So there was a Public Trust Advisors was hired by, I didn't cover some of the background, but there's a board of trustees that oversees the program. They're all participants, local treasurers and chief investment officers. Arlington, Chesterfield, for example, their treasurers are on the board. They hire Public Trust Advisors, and they manage over $50 billion of fixed income for local governments. So they're the expertise making the decisions on the buying and selling of the securities.
Are there different funds available that we have money invested in other than what we have invested?
We have a daily liquidity pool, which is it's a dollar in, dollar out type
Right.
pool, AAA rated. But the comparisons I showed, it is available, and the yields are moving up. It's for operating funds, it's an attractive option.
So you're saying in order for us to see a return on our investment, we should keep it in at least 5 years as opposed to the 3?
I hesitate to put an exact time on it. It's the interest rate cycle, and even the Fed has gotten timing of that wrong. I mean, last summer, it's September, they said they anticipated raising rates once this calendar year. Then in December, they said 3 times. More recently, it's 7 times in March, I think they said. So it's very difficult to predict the time or timing. I think it really should be driven by what's your objective, what's your time horizon, and if these are long-term funds, as I understand they are, as I said earlier, if you want to if you don't need the money for at a specific point in time, as rates fall, that might be an appropriate time to rebalance or move funds around. But and again, the money is not locked up. I mean, you can get access to it twice a month. That's just our suggestion, as you're evaluating your options.
As interest rates started to rise, did your group analyze and reinvest and move money around, or apparently you left it in this one fund? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Our board has historically, in the past, has had extensive conversations on that. But I think if you look at any mutual fund, if they publish and pursue a strategy, they're not going to just change it. This is not a fund that is going to change duration and strategy depending on their views of where markets are. This fund, its stated strategy is it's a high quality 1 to 3 year strategy, which means the duration is about 1.8 to 2 years. So that sticking with the strategy through market cycles is what the board of trustees has deemed. And we actually hired a consultant because that was such a hot question back when the rates were rising a few years back.
You said 1.8 years. How long have we been invested in it?
I think 2 years.
2 years. Now, by my math, we have lost about $446,000 in the past 2 fiscal years.
I don't think we've lost it until we take it out.
Yeah, it's on paper. And I don't know the math. I mean, I trust what you're saying. but
I'm looking at it.
So
So how much would you estimate the market would have to turn to regain $446,000?
I don't have those calculations in front of me. I would just stress that there's a lot of data and a lot of information when you look at indices. Our fund was established, there's a 7-year track record, but go back 25 years, through market cycles, and I had a few slides that showed that through market cycles, those paper losses tend to be offset by paper gains, and it's the income that really drives the performance.
Well, I guess, let me phrase it this way. If it's a 1.8-year lifespan, I think that's what I understood you to say.
That's the duration.
And if we've been in 2 years and it's a 3-year investment, 1 to 3 year investment, I mean, we got a whole lot of making up to do in 12 months to even get back to even, because now we have lost below our initial investment. And who at your firm is looking at this for us? Because we're entrusting your firm to invest the taxpayers' dollars and get the biggest return that we can. So if the Board of Trustees is saying, well, this is our strategy, and we're almost 10 months straight now losing money, I'm very concerned about it.
I hear you, and it is, but I guess I just stress, what I've said is that it's a paper loss. Through market cycles, that tends to be a wash.
Sure.
And the income is what really drives performance.
So when you're saying income, what does that mean?
We're not, there are funds out there like a BlackRock that can, go anywhere, guess where the market's going. That's not this fund, and it's really not appropriate. I mean, this is a strategy that is, very common. If you talk to Arlington's treasurer, they have an investment manager in-house that buys various securities that mature within 5 years.
I get it. I'm just not elected to do Arlington, I'm elected to do something, so this is where I'm concerned.
Right. Well, it's a paper loss through market cycles. When you look at history as a guide, it's the income that drives performance. Beyond that.
When you say income, what specifically are you talking? Are you talking about us investing more to the fund?
No.
Okay.
Income is fixed income securities have a coupon generally. I mean, there's other formats, but
Gotcha.
they have a coupon. So you buy, a 2-year bond that pays 1.25% coupon every 6 months.
Gotcha.
That is real dollars coming in, and it's set up to be reinvested. So your account is the number of shares you have are growing because of that.
Gotcha. Now I understand what you're talking about, income.
Yeah.
Well, again, I've been very concerned. I've raised it every month. And although it may be a paper loss, at my dinner table, if it's in parentheses or has a negative, it's a loss. And I can manage my personal money how I want to, and whatever level I want to risk is my personal decision. But now we are charged with managing taxpayers' dollars, and that's a difference. So whether we take it out or not, it is a loss. I just want the taxpayers to understand that this account is almost $450,000 negative.
And I'm sorry, I guess my question would be, what could we do, what could you all be doing better for us that we don't continue to see these losses? Because again, the interest rates are going to go up probably 2 to 3 more times this year. If that's all indications. I mean, what could you all be doing better for us as a town where we don't see these big losses? I mean, it was a $52,000 loss. 53,000 last month. And I had citizens asking me the same questions, what can you all do better? And I don't do that every day. So I'm just asking you, what can we do better to not see these losses? I'm sorry?
Nothing, go ahead.
I was asking him.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, I stress that, I mean, even the Fed doesn't know where the rates are going. Last year, they said they were gonna raise it one time this year.
Right.
So, no, if somebody has a crystal ball, I'd love to hire them. So, I mean, that, you know, it is impossible to predict where the market's going. People have good guesses, sometimes they're right, sometimes they're not. The way this fund performs well is investing through market cycles. If, you know, we have been in an extremely unusual period where rates have just gone up. I mean, that one chart I showed, almost 2.5% in you know, since July 1st at the 2-year maturity range. But again, you know, they are rolling the funds over at higher interest rates, so they're able to invest it to generate more income, which, as I've said, is the real driver of performance. You know, this is a strategy that, you know, is, if you look at fixed income strategies, the state code allows you to go out for 5 years. 5 years is a lot more volatile. At 1.8, we think the volatility, when you look at the history of performance, the volatility is very modest. But the potential for more income, you know, has proven historically to be, you know, very attractive. So the risk-reward trade-off, and again, you know, there's a big difference between credit risk and interest rate risk. We're not talking about credit risk. I mean, these are AA securities or better, and corporate notes in the portfolio right now are about 4%. 60% is U.S. Treasuries. So whenever you buy a Treasury, you know, you are, that is the safest that you can buy. And I would just say, I mean, when you bought into this portfolio roughly 2 years ago, if you bought like a 2-year CD at that point, you know, I believe in an estimate you would make $20,000. Right now you're sitting on income of $179,000. So if you stay the course through market cycles and the market, you know, the additional income from the current higher rates, and as you know, when you buy a bond, if you hold it to maturity, it comes back to par. So that those losses that you're citing through market cycle, I mean, it's basic math of fixed income. Through market cycles, those tend to wash out. And so you made, you know, significantly more income than if you bought a CD and sat on it for 2 years. So, you know, I can't tell you that you need to, you know, be comfortable with the volatility. If the town's not, you know, that's certainly your decision. I just know when you look at the history of this strategy, how it compares to other options, and you know what that volatility means. 1.8% duration. You know, we've been, as I said, this quarter has been, you know, it's been the most volatile in 40 years.
And how many? I'm sorry.
40.
40.
Yes.
Okay.
The portfolio managers commented on, you know, this has been the most aggressive move in interest rates over a quarter. But you know, to me, the thing is, a lot of the pain has been taken. If you sell, you'll lock it in. But now instead of buying investments at 25, 50 basis points, 0.5%, they can buy 2-year treasuries at 2.60. So that's going to generate a lot more income. So I mean, that's the way I see it. You know, if you're uncomfortable with that volatility, you know, I can't twist your arm and tell you to let it go. But I see it. We're in a good time to earn more income. I'm not going to say it's not going to continue to be volatile. I mean, the Fed may raise rates another 3 or 4 times. But that means that the income opportunity potential is that much better. And for those who can invest through market cycles, this fund has proven to be a better strategy than buying a CD and locking it in. Because even though on paper you're not showing a loss of money, as interest rates rose and you had a 20 basis point CD for 2 years, you lost out on a lot of opportunity. So, I mean, that's the way I see it. I mean, these strategies are, the state code is comfortable with local governments investing in this, and they're very restrictive on what local governments can invest.
To use a phrase that you've used, to sell means locking it in. That means actualizing, materializing the paper loss that you refer to, which means that those hundreds of thousands of dollars that are only on paper then become a real loss. It's money out of the pocket.
That is, yes, that is true.
Okay.
And if we decide to opt out of it, we're still losing money, or we get, how much more we get back on our return if we decide to opt out of it, period, out of the investment?
If you decide to liquidate, it's at the then market value. So wherever the market value is at that time. So, I mean, if it's 400,000, then it would be, that would be, the new value that we get.
Question, and I'm just looking at this report, so you may have access to something I don't. You're talking about income was $140,000,
179.
179? Is that on our report?
No,
Is that number's not on
all
there?
you see is what you see is the change in the market value. But that reflects two components. What he pointed out was the price and the income. So at this point, the fall in the price was greater than the income. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
To date. Initially, both of them were above the line. That's why we had those gains. But when the interest rates go up, you'll see more income that's generated. And so that should bring this back up if the price does not fall to a greater degree of the investment. And they're bonds, so over time, when they mature, they come back to your, if it's a $100 bond, the value of it might have dropped to 70, and it'll get back up to 100, but we've earned more than it would have been in a CD. But we have to
I just point to this chart on 15 that I pulled up. The total return is the dashed line. So as you can see, I mean, back in 2017, the total return was below the income, so the price went down. But then it reversed. And the Fed has changed over the last 5 years. The Fed has changed. I mean, they started raising rates, but then they stopped. Then they lowered them 150 basis points in March of 2020. So predicting interest rates is not anything that someone could do with consistency. And I think this chart demonstrates that the total return is above and below and above the income return, and it's kind of tracking the income return. So the income return over time is what drives performance of this 1 to 3 strategy.
Councilman Taylor, you had a question?
No, Mr. Callis,
Sure.
you made my point.
Oh,
Okay. Yes.
Steve, thank you very much for taking the
Thank
time
you.
to share this information, and we really appreciate all your help with it.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we will now get to citizens to address council. Mr. Edmonds?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm here on behalf of the Mecklenburg County Council Association to bring you an update on our shagging for a cause that we finally had after 2.5 years. We appreciate the town being a sponsor as well as allowing us to use the exchange. I'd like to thank Mr. Callis and Mr. Dean and the guys at the town shop for getting it cleaned out and getting it ready for the event. Councilman Moss, Councilman Honeycutt with the shops for the food that day. We were able to raise for the Mecklenburg County Council Association $35,173 that one day. And we do want to try to make it an annual event. Just to let you know, we're going to put it out there. We're going to meet here in a few weeks to start planning for next year, but this will give us something on this side of the county. Well, on the other side of the county, they have the Sydney Heights Golf Tournament. So that'll give us something on both sides of the county to help the citizens of Mecklenburg. Thank y'all.
Floyd.
Yes, sir.
Floyd, I think it's important to note, I believe I heard a couple of your team mention that every penny goes to help families in Mecklenburg County that have been affected by counts.
That's correct. None of it goes for administrative costs. None of it goes for anything. It all goes, there's a board of 15 people. I'm on the board from the South Hill area, and so is Crystal and Rhonda Elmore and Bracy. There's people scattered all through the county. We meet, you fill out the applications, but all the money stays. Nobody gets none, no administrative costs at all. Every dime goes back to the citizens of Mecklenburg County.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Excuse me. Now, how is that determined? You have, you mean if a citizen has needs, they contact?
Yes, ma'am. You can go to the website, mcca.com, and there's a form that you fill out, your personal information. There's a form that you got to get done by your doctor. Now, everything is kept confidential, so when the board meets and they vote on it, it stays there. It doesn't go any further.
Okay.
And there's also a third thing that you have to supply. It's a bill, a phone bill, a light bill, or whatever it is, with your 911 physical address so that we know that you are a citizen of Mecklenburg County.
Okay.
And then if you go to the cancer center over here, Tammy House is a social worker.
Yes.
She has all that information for me.
Okay. How long does it generally take you all to make a decision as to
Within 60 days,
60 days?
yeah. We meet every month. We meet every month.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Floyd.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Crowd?
I'm speaking for 80% of the population of South Hill. We don't need any sewer increase. You got plenty of money to swing it. I was at the store the other day, a man coming out, got $5 worth of gas. $5 didn't take him to the other side of town, drive to Oak Clunker. Now, y'all said last week that you needed a $6 increase. You don't need a $6 increase. You're spending money like a drunk sailor. You don't need to spend money like a drunk sailor. Save some money. Now, hard times for everybody. So I need the 5 minutes too, because I'm speaking for 80% of the people in South Hill. I'm not speaking for just me. So 80% of the people in South Hill, they have a hard time paying the bills as it is. Gas bill, food bill, there's no end to it. And y'all want to shoot up $6 more extra dollars. That's that old guy's $5 worth of gas. I mean, you don't need to increase no prices now. If anything, sell some stuff. You got about a $500,000 motor grader sitting up there. It ain't worth a darn to the town of South Hill. You can take it, maybe you get $100,000 for it, but you sure don't need no motor grader. You got that tractor with the big arm and the mower. That's going through town. That makes them trees look like hell when they go through that and beat the limbs off of it. In front of the South Hill Elementary School, look at that, them cedar trees across the road. Look like a hurricane come down through that. That ain't the way to do a tree. Let the tree grow, the bottom limbs fall off. Something different got to be done. And the street sweeper, they ain't never swept the street in front of my house. And I'm having to have to pay for this thing. 80% of the people in South Hill, they don't get that street swept because they don't have no curbing. So if you want to sweep streets, the people with the curbing charge them more money because they getting the benefit of it. I ain't got the benefit of none of it yet. And it's a lot of ways you can save money. Just stop spending so much, throwing it away. I mean, you throw money away. Dually trucks, utility trucks. You could get 2 pickups for what you did, 1 dually. And y'all think you got a great balance. No, you lost a whole truck right there. The other day, the motor grader went down there in front of Cracker Barrel and he made a little scrape. That was good. They brought a backhoe in. They brought a dump truck in. They brought a pickup with 4 people in. Just for one little scrape you could have done with a wheelbarrow and 2 shovels. I mean, you just don't understand how stuff works. If you've never done work before, you don't know the difference in it.
All right.
And I get 5 minutes because I'm speaking for 80% of the people.
Sir,
Right here.
sir, I'm being respectful. 3 minutes, and you have another topic in regards to the policy for individuals who wish to address council. So I would ask you to move on to that one.
Well, how about just 5 minutes if I'm speaking for a group of people? When does that apply?
That would be in an organization, as we heard before, from Rescue Squad or Fire Department, not on an individual basis. So I would
So
respectfully.
if a group of people from Soap Hill get together and object to the sewer increase, that mean I can't get 5 minutes?
Sir, I'm asking you respectfully to move on to the next topic.
I want to go to the next topic because that's about the 5 minutes. Okay, the next topic is, we get 3 minutes. I wait 30 days to get 3 minutes. A prisoner in jail gets more than 3 minutes when he goes see the judge. I mean, 3 minutes ain't enough to even say goodbye and hello, to be nice about it. So you gotta be kind of out front and say what you're gonna say, because if you're polite, you don't get nothing done. And get 3 minutes. I mean, that's a kangaroo court right here, if I've ever seen it. It ain't court, but it's kangaroo. If you're gonna only give me 3 minutes, it's a kangaroo system. You want us to keep our mouth shut and just drop dead and go somewhere else and tax the hell out of us and charge us for this and charge us for that. For you can get the money and throw it over here and throw it over there and make that street light. Did you know that warehouse up there, the Exchange warehouse, that's got 26 lights burning on it every night. What's 26 lights to the town of Soap Hill? And 2 street lights out front. Well, what's 26 lights? You don't care. You can cut them lights off, save that money. I don't burn that kind of lights at home. I doubt if anybody else burn all them lights at home. You throw money away. And y'all got any questions for me?
Council. Thank you for your time, sir.
No, I'm not through yet. I just asked did you have any questions. Okay. I want my 3 minutes. I want the whole trip. Because I feel like I'm getting screwed. Taking my tax money and pissing it away. I don't care if you do it your tax money or anybody else's tax money. It's my tax money you're pissing away. I got nothing to show for it in front of my house. Not even the street sweeper coming down through there and beating the grass out the road. I ought to get something for the taxes. But do I get anything for taxes? Nah, nothing. Will I get anything for it? Nah, nothing. I'll never get nothing for it. Because you got to take it and take care of this new business come in town, then run over here and take care of this other new business come in town, and bend over and lick that man's shoes, and bend over and lick that man's shoes, and the poor person paying the taxes, you don't lick none they got. Now, it ain't right, but we got the town council from 35 years ago. Same town council look like to me, because you sure ain't doing nothing for the individual person. You're ignoring us all together.
Thank you for your time, sir.
I know you thank me for it, but I'm gonna be here every month.
Question. That's a question. Mr. Crowder referenced that we have 26 lights on at the Exchange. Is that accurate?
We have some, no.
Yeah.
We
I'm a liar?
we don't have 20, we don't have.
Am I a liar?
All I know is.
Turn
we
around and
have-
call me a liar to my face.
All right,
then.
Mr. Crowder, your time's up. He's going to address.
No, he's calling me a liar.
No, Mr.
We
Crowder.
said 26 lights outside the Exchange, okay? There are some lights that shine up on the building,
4.
Okay, Mr. Crowder.
4 of them, and then
Okay,
there are the
let's
street
get
lights
right.
along the road. And then there are the street lights along the road.
Gotcha.
And
I don't
down
believe
that
that.
side, down this side, and across the back.
Okay.
We're gonna get the whole truth in here, not just part of it.
All right. Thank you for your time, Mr. Crowder.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the audience, before we get into the budget, it was brought to my attention, I'd just like to make, because it's about the entire town, to recognize all those folks that participated in the cleanup day. And I think it was the revitalization committee, first responders, some volunteer groups, and there weren't a lot of people, but those that were there worked really hard. So thank you to all of those people that participated.
May I piggyback on it? It was a beautiful day, and we know that people had other things going on. The crowd that was there was not as big as we normally have, but those that were there did a whole lot of work. And personally, I'd like to thank them. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't think I missed maybe one since it started. But the weather had a lot to do with it because people had places to go and things to do. But it was very worthwhile. Sandra Kinker, everybody, to Jamie Sneed, everybody who coordinated this. As a town representative, I'd like to thank them for it, and all the citizens that showed up, as well as the organization, fire department, rescue squad, Beta Club, and I hope I'm not leaving anybody out, but thank y'all for coming out. It was worthwhile and needed.
Okay. Before we get into the public hearing, we'd like to go over just a couple things. First of all, I wanted to thank the Budget and Finance Committee and our staff and our council, and especially our Director of Finance and Administration, Sheila Cutrell, because she did the yeoman's work in putting this together. We've had several meetings of the committee. We had a work session with council, and now tonight is our public hearing on the proposed budget. So the total budget for the town is almost $26 million. As you can see, over 15 in the general fund and 10.9 in the water and sewer fund, and a little bit in the cemetery. It was like everyone. The town is dealing with many challenges. We're facing lots of things on a daily basis, both short-term and long-term. We have a tough time getting materials, and when we do get them, the prices have gone up tremendously. The consumer price index is now up over 8.5%, and it's probably going to continue to go up. We faced a health insurance cost increase. One thing I want this council to understand, though, is we shop that around every year, and it did go up this year. But our rates, but by shopping it around every year, we have been able to manage those costs, and our rates are 25% less than a lot of our than a lot of the other communities around us. Some people go with Local Choice, which is a good program. We shop it around, and we've been able to save a lot of money over the years doing that. Another challenge is recruitment and retention of employees. We have 4 major infrastructure projects. We have 2 major facility projects. We did put in the budget some additional public works positions. And one thing I'd like to also mention is that we have no tax increases in this budget, and we've not had a real estate tax increase since 2004, 2005. We do have built in a water and sewer rate increase, and we will talk about that a little bit later. In looking at that $15 million general fund budget, I won't read all of these departments to you, but in looking at the police department, you'll see a bit of an increase, and that's because one of the things we did there is we raised salaries so that we could be competitive with our neighbors, and we needed to be on par with them to be able to recruit and retain officers. In street maintenance, we have a big stormwater project that's over $400,000. And in facilities maintenance, the biggest part of that is 2 buildings. One is renovations to the police department so that we could bring that up to standard. And then another building to replace a building that's got to come down in Public Works. The community development line went down because there is no transfer to the water and sewer fund, and there is no funding in there this year for the chamber and the colonial. So that was almost $1 million. So the capital expenditures, 2 vehicles for the police department. And we have a program where we try to replace these vehicles when they hit 100,000 miles, and we're on a cycle, and we try to do 2 or 3 a year so that we can replace them in a timely manner. In the fire department, they requested some heavy-duty struts to help with extrication when you're dealing with heavy vehicles. In street maintenance, I mentioned the stormwater project is $400,000, and then we have some hydraulics for the dump trucks so that when they are spreading materials, they can disperse them more safely and more effectively. And then in solid waste, we're on a program where we replace dumpsters every year. In fleet maintenance, that heavy vehicle lift is something that we need so that our mechanics down there can work safely underneath heavy vehicles. In facility maintenance, replacing and upsizing 2 fuel tanks, 1 gas and 1 diesel. Mentioned the Public Works building, which was in the current year budget, but it's a carryover to the next fiscal year. I mentioned the police department renovations, and we need to also replace our stairs out back because they no longer meet the current code. In parks and grounds, the groomer is a carryover from the current fiscal year. It's just hard to get these things in. And then some barricades and a mower, and then we'll resurface the tennis courts here at Centennial Park, and they will be made playable for both tennis and pickleball. So I mentioned in the general fund, the rates are the same, no changes. It's been 34 cents in real estate for over 15 years plus, 17 years. We went up on personal property a few years ago, but no increases anywhere else. The water and sewer fund, you can see it's 6.4 million in water, 2.6 in sewer, and 1.8 million at the wastewater treatment plant. In water distribution, the North Side Water Project, we have started the engineering on that, and we need that to create some redundancy and to serve the industrial parks and those customers on that side of town. The Plank Road Water Project, water does not extend far down Plank Road, and we need to get it out there, and this will also help us to get a redundant loop into town near Parkview High School. A pneumatic pipe saw is something that the crews use on a regular basis when they're doing pipe repairs. And then we want to order the materials to replace some water lines at Dogwood, Tanglewood, and Forest. And that's just ordering the materials. That's not doing the work. With the lead time to get materials is so long, we need to go ahead and place that order. In the sewer collection system, that's finishing up the Northeast Sewer Project. That project is well underway, and it's probably going to be over $5 million at the end of the day, and we hope to finish this project up in the early fall. There's a pump for one of our stations, and then we talked about every year we had been spending money trying to slip line sewer lines, but it's not an exact science. And so we have 64 miles of sewer line. And what we're recommending is that we advertise for a contract to camera and map that entire 64 miles and identify and prioritize those areas that most need attention. At the wastewater treatment plant, I think most people know that the water that comes out of there has to be cleaner than the water that comes out of the tap because of regulatory reasons. And they need tools out there to make sure that they accurately treat and test the water. And so these are just tools they need. The clarifiers are the things that help stir up the water so that the sediment settles to the bottom. The clarifier drives are 37 years old. And so this is not to replace them, it's to rebuild them. So our total sewer capital expenditures are just about $6.4 million. We do have a water rate increase, and we're passing on the water rate increase from the Service Authority, which was about 40 cents a gallon, and then we needed to, on top of that, to have an increase. We needed to do it to keep up. because we've budgeted for transfers from the general fund in prior years, and that's not a good practice. Your water and sewer fund should be operated as a business enterprise fund, and it should be self-sustaining. We did compare our rates to those around us. We looked at Emporia, we looked at Halifax County, we looked at Clarksville, we looked at Vance County, North Carolina. Even with this rate increase, our rates are 36% lower than the next highest of those that I just mentioned. 36% lower. So it does mean for someone that uses about 3,000 gallons a month, it does mean a $6.70 increase in their water bill. And this expense distribution just shows that, you know, we spend 42% on water and sewer, 26% on public safety, 22% on public works. And with that, we have 2 public hearings tonight. The first is on the budget, and then the second is on the rates. And so the first thing I'd like to do is just open the public hearing for comments on the budget itself.
That means I can speak?
Yes,
Do I stand up?
if you like, and you can sit if you like.
When you're losing money, get out of it. He said they lost $400,000.
That's not on the budget. That's not a comment on the budget.
Well, that's the money of the town. They can take
This is
that
on the-
$400,000 and make a dog
This is
shelter
on
out
the
of it.
expenditures.
That's expenditures. I ain't as dumb as you think I am. Loss is loss.
Any other comments? Okay. And I'd like to close the public hearing on the budget, and we'd like a motion to place the budget on the June.
How long will your project for your water?
Can you lower it? Can you speak, stand up and speak?
Your water and sewer project, you said the infrastructure, how long will that take? Because it's in your budget. Will
How
that
long
cover-
will they take?
Yes.
Okay, so the sewer project should be finished this fall. The water project is being engineered, and so it will probably take at least a year to finish that, to
So
finish
all
the
that
bid.
money will be considered in this budget?
Ma'am,
The money is gonna be paid out of this budget for the infrastructure?
it will start with this budget. If we don't finish it, we will have to carry some of it forward to next year. So, okay. So I'd like to close the public hearing.
Mr.
And-
Mayor, if I may ask,
Could you state your name, please, ma'am?
Oh, I'm sorry, Noreen Reed.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
I'd
we,
like to make a motion that we accept the proposed budget for fiscal year 22-23 as presented.
it's it needs to be to place it on the June 13th
Oh, place-
meeting
yes,
agenda for
yes.
adoption
Yes, place it on
and
the agenda
appropriation.
for June.
Second.
Discuss-
I just have a question, no discussion. Does this come back up for line item discussion in the June meeting? For council members to raise a question, if we have.
No, I mean, we can, once the budget is adopted and appropriated, you can then go back, but
Yeah, you can always go back and make amendments to the budget or to appropriations at any time.
Does that answer your question, Council?
Yes, sir, thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Anna? Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No,
the second public hearing is for the rates and fees that we talked about here, both property tax and water, general fund and water and sewer. So I open the public hearing for comments on the rates and fees.
That's me. You don't need to raise the rates. Get your money from somewhere else. Stop spending like a drunk sailor. Take that money and hold off for a couple of years so people can catch up. Because the people, I can catch up, and I don't have no sewage either, or water. So I ain't speaking for me. I'm speaking for the people that can't afford y'all keep increasing and increasing. You don't never come down. It's always up. So I'm saying, forget it. Make do with what you got and take your money from somewhere else you're gonna throw away and put towards the water and sewage.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion to place the rates and fees on the June 13th agenda for adoption and appropriation.
So moved. Okay, got a motion and a second. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, on my vote on the first motion, that was just to put it on the agenda, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, can I change mine to yes, to put it on the agenda?
Yep. Somebody voting in the affirmative would have to agree to reconsideration.
It doesn't, I mean, it's fine. Just
Did you
one
want
vote.
Did you want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem putting it on the agenda. I was thinking ahead, I'm sorry.
So in regards to that, I need a motion to accept that.
Who voted in the affirmative to reconsider the vote on that motion?
Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
The 2/3 vote or 4/3? 2/3.
Okay. Roll call, Anna?
Bacon Spoon,
Yeah.
Graham,
Yes.
Honeycutt,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Moody,
Yes.
Moss,
I don't know if I can vote yes, if I can, okay.
Ben Taylor,
Yes.
and Joseph Taylor.
Thank you.
Okay, now, so who, I think, Mr. Hank, you made the motion, if you want to restate the motion for the putting the budget on the June calendar.
All right, so I would like to remake the motion that we add this proposed FY 22-23 budget to our June agenda as presented by our.
Okay. I have a motion, I have a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. All right.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we have a rezoning request by CNS Enterprises to rezone 700 Heights Street and 685 East Northington Street from single-family residential R110 to general district R216. I'd like to open up the floor for comment. If there is none, I'll close. The planning commission did recommend approval. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that.
Yeah. I just, I think I know, but, what was the stated reason?
It's apartments that were built there in the residential zone, and if they ever, let's say, burned, technically they couldn't build them back in the residential zone.
Okay,
So they're requesting the rezoning so they can build them back.
thank you.
Okay, council.
Make a motion that we approve rezoning case 2022-2 as presented.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, we have a special exemption by William J. Daniel to utilize 613 West Danville Street for automobile body shop. I'd like to open the public floor. I'd like to open the floor for public hearing. As there is none, close.
Question. Just, where's that building?
It's presently at the south side Collision.
That's the old.
The south side Collision.
Queens.
Yes, old
Thank you.
Queens.
That's
Yes, sir.
what I
Yes,
raised
sir.
as a
Old
child,
Queens.
that's what I
Yes.
wanted, okay, all right. Just for clarification.
The planning commission recommended approval.
All right, so I make a motion that we,
But keep some stipulations first.
oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, it was some stipulations on it. Now, I do not have the list with me.
All right, can somebody read those to us?
I have. Southfield Planning Commission recommends approval with the stipulations that all damaged vehicles must be kept inside the fence or building and will not be seen from the street. Mr. Daniel will install a wooden gate for the fence in the alley. The dumpster will be moved inside the fence and nothing from the body shop will be allowed to lean against the fence for the adjoining property.
So for clarification, Mr. Taylor, that would also mean that we can't keep any wrecked cars out in the street or out front of the building or anything. They would have to be in that fenced area in the back of the building. Is that correct?
As I read it, yes, that's what it says.
You directed it to Mr. Taylor, but the planning commission, that was the purpose of putting on stipulations.
Okay. I just, for clarification,
That is correct.
thank you.
Okay.
So now I'd like to make a motion that we accept this request by Mr. Daniel at 613 West Elm Street with the stipulations in place.
Second. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
We had another third one, but the planning commission made no motion. I just figured I would make that comment.
We can still, you can still, we advertised it, we can have the public
Still
hearing.
have the public hearing.
You can have the public hearing, you
I'd
don't
like
need to
to
take any
open the
action.
floor for public hearing for comment.
You want to tell them what it's regarding?
Please.
It was in reference to a body shop also. It would be in the Chuck Lynn's old lawnmower building.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I'm actually starting the business next door. So Southside Collision's been there for a long time. And Mr. Purnell actually had that building too because of the overflow of cars. That building's smaller. There's no booth in it. There's wrecked cars everywhere, which is it's a big problem in Mecklenburg County and South Hill. That's why I told them that I was not going to put any wrecked cars on the street. And that's what they seem to be doing basically next door. There's no paint booth. The building's not up to code. So, I mean, I just opposed it. You know, it don't need to be there.
Okay. And you state your name, I'm sorry?
William Daniel.
Okay, thank you.
When you said no action was taken on the request from the planning commission,
It was no vote. So I guess
I
technically,
mean, was it proposed?
I guess Mr. Walters could come back in another 30 days and reapply.
But there's no motion, so so it's not properly before you all for consideration or for the planning commission. They can always refile. That's the way that's left.
If I may, Mr. Moss?
Yes, sir.
Regarding that, there was no motion now because we did not want to turn him down with what he was requesting at that time and thereby possibly eliminate it being done in the future. There were some questions that we had regarding the use of the building, and we suggested to him that he meet with Mr. Hash to discuss what changes needed to be made, and we offered him the opportunity to come back at a later date once those changes have been made and make a presentation to the planning commission.
So has he essentially withdrawn his request?
I'm not gonna say he withdrew his request, it was just no action taken by the planning commission.
And this council can take the same approach, and that way he can reapply.
No problem.
We wanted to leave the door open for him to come back.
Thank you.
So, council, from a clarity standpoint, do we need a motion for
There'd be no motion.
no motion, even if no action is taken, or just stated no
Correct.
action taken?
There's no motion.
Okay, all right. Okay,
Close the public hearing.
thank you.
Good evening. I have an appropriation of funds request for this evening. Due to unanticipated costs and challenges in procuring materials and supplies, additional appropriations are needed to cover necessary repairs and supplies in the following line items for the final months of fiscal year 21-22. Vehicle and equipment maintenance to replace an engine or motor and a fire engine, $40,000. Fuel expense for the fire department, an additional $10,000. And repairs and maintenance for parks and grounds for step replacement at Parker Park, an additional $15,000.
Mr. Mayor, I move to appropriate $65,000 from the fund balance of the general fund to cover the cost of these items as Ms. Kittrell has listed.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion?
Question. Where were the steps at Parker Park replaced for $15,000?
All dugouts, the press boxes at all fields at Parker.
On the softball side?
Yes.
So it's four?
Four of them, 4 sets of them.
Oh, okay.
So it costs about $3,500 a field, roughly. Okay.
Ma'am, did you have a comment?
No, I wasn't following the math, that's all.
Oh, okay.
I got you now.
Okay.
Some expensive steps.
Councilman Honeycutt, do you have a comment?
No, I don't, no.
Okay. All right, council, what's your pleasure?
Do you have a second?
Second.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay, second. All right. All right. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. You have before you tonight the results of a sealed bid that were opened at the Town Hall on April 13th at 2 o'clock for asphalt overlay and traffic marking. The two bids were submitted. The one from Colony Construction was $445,433. Adams Construction Company had the low bid of $393,820. This project is part of the overlay for the capital project in FY 21-22. So I would recommend, I'm sorry, it should be 21-22, that's right, this year. So I would ask tonight that you go ahead and award the contract to Adams Construction for a base price of $393,820.
So moved.
Okay, so it's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, it's been brought to my attention that council members are hearing citizens' concerns about a rise in crime and our police department's ability to deal with crime and criminality. Please let me reassure you that our police department is capable and hard at work in keeping the citizens and visitors to our town safe. Like the rest of the country, we are seeing a spike in violent crime. Nationally, homicides were up 30% in 2020 and 5% in 2021, so a 35% increase since 2019. This is also accompanied by a spike in violence across our country. If you turn on the news, you will see that every major city around us is dealing with violent crime issues. Our community is a microcosm of those larger jurisdictions. I understand the public's concern because I share them. We are all dealing with the fallout of sweeping criminal justice reforms that have tied law enforcement hands in many cases, a spike in violent crime, and a lack of people that wish to put on the badge and risk their lives and livelihood for people that they don't know. Council has taken actions to try to address some of these problems, like increasing pay for officers, increasing the distance for our take-home vehicle program, and you're currently looking at updating our police department building. These efforts will help to recruit and retain exceptional officers in our town, and I personally thank you for your efforts. Unfortunately, investigating and solving crimes is not like on TV. We're not able to wrap everything up in 60-minute time frame. Our state crime lab is also short-staffed and is working on a backlog of requests. That means many of the processes we need to identify suspects and solve crimes are taking months. An example I can give you is that the Commonwealth Attorney has not been able to close out our officer-involved shooting case from December of 2021 because he is still waiting for information from the state lab so he can finalize his findings. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that our agency is perfect. We do have areas where we need some improvement. The command staff and I have taken proactive steps to ensure that events like the escape that happened last week do not happen again. Police officers are human and make mistakes from time to time. I'm not going to go into details on active and ongoing investigations, but we are working diligently to solve these crimes that concern everyone. We are also working with our partners in the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office, the Virginia State Police, and the U.S. Marshals Service to apprehend suspects and the fugitive. I would ask that citizens that have information or know of criminal activity, please contact your local law enforcement agency. We need you to be an active participant in keeping our community safe, being mindful of your surroundings, calling 911, and when you see something, say something. Locking your car and locking your doors will go a long ways towards fighting crime. Thank you again for all your ongoing support for our police department. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief.
Okay. Council?
Kim, can I say one thing? It's good, it's not.
I'm
Y'all know the community,
I'm sorry, Mr. Hayes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I can't say anything, I'll say something nice about it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Council, in your packet was the reports to be approved as presented for the month of April.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have one question, please, I'm sorry. Can you tell me what day of the, and what month that the Colonial received their tax exempt status?
I want to say the letter was dated March the 26th, I believe.
That's what your
But please
memo
don't-
states.
Is that right?
Yes,
March 26th?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Question. On the financial report, have we engaged with the collection agency yet on past due taxes?
Yes.
Who and when?
Tax, TA.
GCS.
Is there, and we discussed it briefly, but I went back and I pulled the minutes. You know, we voted on this in August of '21. When did we engage with that company, tax, which is who we approved to do? When did we start that service with them?
We just signed the contract several days ago, yeah. Several days ago, yeah.
Can you tell me why it took from August to May? Okay, no,
Not briefly, I can't, no.
I figured. Okay.
I can answer that question if you'd like.
Go ahead.
The motion that was made in August when this was brought up to council was to amend the section, adopt an amendment to section 78.2 to allow for the imposition of administrative costs and collection agency or attorney's fees to be added to delinquent bills. In September of last year, we began turning ward off again for non-payment. Some of the same people who owe for taxes also owe delinquent water bills. So we were trying to give people time to address those issues and to get caught up on their bills with the town. We also wanted to let the tax bills go out. We sent tax bills out in November of last year. They were due January 5th. Since then, we've been using other methods of collection. No, we had not engaged with the collection agency, but we've been using ERMS, which is a debt set off through the state of Virginia. We've also been doing DMV stops, and we have gotten a lot of results from DMV stops, where people cannot renew the license for their vehicles, excuse me. We have also provided a list of properties to the attorney's office to be sold at tax sale in November. So there are a lot of things that we have been doing to collect those delinquent taxes, even though we had not engaged with a collection agency. And actually, the group that we engaged with is not a collection agency. They are an attorney firm, they are a legal firm. So they can do more things for us than a collection agency can. We are planning to get them a list of the delinquent taxes within the next couple of weeks, so they can start taking action. But in addition to that, once the bills went out, we have also sent out delinquent notices twice. So we wanted to give people an opportunity to respond to the letters that we had sent out and to respond to the DMV stops before we turn them over to the collection firm.
How much do you think we've collected? It was a little over 200,000. Do you have and I don't mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, do you have an idea of what we collected?
I had the report from last month and I don't have it in front of me, but I want to say we've collected probably 24,000 or so in the last month. We've been making some strides towards that.
Good.
It was, and you said it was, so we voted on doing a collection, but you said it was an attorney, it's an attorney firm.
It is a legal firm.
A legal firm, yes, ma'am. So was there any cost difference in what we were paying to have this company do this for us?
There's no charge to the town.
Okay.
There is a charge.
They get a percentage. They get a
added
percentage.
the
Right.
on to the delinquent
And what
tax
percentage?
payments bill, 20%.
They get 20%.
20%. The only way there'd be a charge to the town is if we utilize them for a tax sale, and we do
Okay.
not intend to do that.
Okay.
We intend to continue going through, doing our tax sale with Mecklenburg County.
Okay, thank you.
Is that amount something that can be, is it easily included maybe in the report? Because to be honest with you, nobody's told me that in 1 month you collected 28,000.
The
Is that a way
outstanding
to?
amount shows on the report each
Right.
month.
Okay.
So if you
I'll go back
compare
and
it to
review
the, I'd have to look at the month before,
I
but
can go back and review that. Thank
you can
you.
look at that. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Excuse me, didn't we have a conversation? We used to put names of people who had delinquent taxes in the paper. Did we say we were going to do that?
I think Councilman Honeycutt mentioned that.
You do it.
We had mentioned about doing that, Mr. Councilman Taylor, yes, and I thought that was something we were gonna go ahead and do while we were in this
Well,
process.
it needs to be at the direction of council.
Well, I know we had mentioned it.
Right. It has been mentioned, but in order to do it, I mean, I need the direction from council to do so. So it would, in my opinion, it would need to be voted on. Correct, Mr. Estes?
Yes.
One last question, I'm sorry. Do you know approximately, and I'm sure it's a range, but do you know an average maybe of how past due, maybe the bulk of the taxes are? And I'm sure it floats, I understand
The
that.
majority of the real estate taxes would be the current year.
Okay, so not too bad.
No, no. And some of what's included in there
Hold on,
too.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Some of what was included in there too were like demolition costs. We have had to demolish structures on properties.
Property, sure.
So that's included in that total as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Anna, where do we have a motion and a second? We're in the discussion mode or not? Okay, council, what is your pleasure on?
We did have a motion and a second. Reports to approve
Okay,
as
all
presented.
right, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, Councilwoman Lester, update on committee report?
Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. One moment, please. Mr. Mayor and fellow members of Town Council, we just wanted to report to you that the Policy Review Committee did meet on April 21st to discuss the comments by Mr. Wade Crowder at the April 11 council meeting regarding trash collection. After carefully considering these comments and discussing the fact that the purpose of a uniform system of ordinances is to ensure overall health, safety, and welfare of citizens, no further action was warranted. There was some alternatives spoken to Mr. Crowder, but he decided not to avail himself of any of those. So at this point in time, we do not wish to change the ordinance. It remains as stated.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Okay, council, in your packet are some appointments. We have two tonight to discuss. The first one is in regards to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Stuart Taylor has stepped down as an alternate from the BZA. Joseph B. Joe Capper has been contacted and agreed to serve out Mr. Taylor's 5-year term ending July 10th, 2026. What's your pleasure?
I move to recommend appointment of Joe Caput to serve out Stuart Taylor's term on BZA, which ends July 10, 2026.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thanks. Okay, the next one, council, has been a discussion, it's been going for several meetings in regards to the CDA. And at our last meeting, the council, the mayor and the council was given direction as far as fulfilling the new CDA board. And under that, under the articles, the guidelines were that 4 members shall be appointed for terms of 2 years each, beginning on June the 1st of 2022 and serve until December the 31st of 2023. Therefore, appointments shall be for 4-year terms. 3 members shall be appointed for terms of 4 years each, beginning June 1 of 2022 to serve until December 31st, 2025. Therefore, thereafter, appointments shall be made for 4-year terms. Members shall be eligible for reappointment for successive terms without limitations. Consideration for all improvements shall be first given to residents of the town of South Hill, but non-residents shall not be prohibited from serving in the appointed capacity as board members. Any vacancy shall be filled by appointments by the mayor, with the consent of the council of the town of South Hill for the unexpired term of the vacating board member. Members appointed to the board of directors should not be employees of the association and shall serve without compensation for services, but may be reimbursed for expenses incurred relevant to the promotion of the business of the association. At our last meeting, we discussed and challenged the group for nominations for a slate. That is before you tonight. Each one of these candidates have been contacted by myself. Again, the council was solicited for nominations. I did receive one. I have put together this slate, and so at this point in time, I'm looking to the council for a motion for approval.
Make a motion that we approve the slate as presented.
I have a question.
Okay.
Have a motion on the floor first. We need a
Yes.
second, then discussion.
Okay, so we have a motion.
A second.
Okay, any discussion?
Any discussion?
I would like to see, we were just presented the names on Wednesday afternoon or Thursday when we got our packet. It gives us not really a chance to discuss amongst ourselves, to talk a bunch, as council that's gonna be, sort of funding this organization. I would like to see the council be able to talk about the nominees before we vote on it. Because there might be some concerns, there might be some other ideas or some other thoughts that hadn't been thought of, or maybe had not been addressed. And I don't know if that's appropriate, I don't know if that can be done. I don't know, that's why I'm asking. I have received a list, and like I said, I just was curious before that list is named or read. I would just like to know can council discuss among themselves about that list before it's voted upon?
And also, Mr. Mayor, I thought when we were talking about the members for the CDA board that we want to have some transparency. And I think at least one name on here should not be on here for, if we want to be transparent about it. So I have a disagreement with one name.
Who is that, Ms. Bowden?
Mr. Brent Morris.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Brent Morris. I'm talking about transparency, he's with the chamber.
Mr. Mayor, I would concur with that. I know some people were very vehement about not having town council members and so forth, including you and town manager, and so forth on that. But yet we go back and we had Mr. Morris as a town employee, just like the town manager was. I don't think that's what we were trying to do. May I ask another question?
Yes.
These other names, and I'm one who made a nomination. These other names are on here, no one nominated anybody for this committee? I think I heard you say that.
Let me define this, sir. To answer your question is that you were the council individual that made a nomination on the time that we discussed in February, and then at our last council meeting, I said the next 7 to 10 days. That is correct. You are correct. You were the only one within that time frame. Now, I had other council members to make nominations, but they were after the slate had been done. And to your point, Councilman Taylor, again, this is productive conversation. We have had some very good discussions about the CDA and about the membership and the people that were made of it. Again, it was clear, I think, to everyone who read the minutes and was privy to it, is that the council agreed that no council members be a part of the CDA. We have had, as you mentioned, the chamber, we have had individuals that was on the chamber that was also a town employee. And so my point is we've had ample time. We've had ample time that if there had been a concern or a question, and I'm not disputing anyone, that there have been a period of time where if there was an objection for a town employee to be on a committee such as this, there was none brought forward.
I just got this list Thursday, and but there were people who were vehemently opposed to the town manager being on here. I mean, vehemently opposed, because they didn't want a town employee on it. And we turn around and we put Mr. Morris on it.
When you say, and I'm not, okay, I did not take it from a standpoint, my presentation or my understanding was council members. I never heard the word town employee. We have had town employees that participated with committees, and I would think we would want that from a standpoint of community relationships and whatever. So I'm just stating as my understanding, Council. That's all.
I would take exception to that due to, we were trying to mirror the IDA. And the IDA does not have a town employee. The IDA is totally independent. Now, they're a separate organization, they have a separate function. But if they need the town manager, they ask him to come to a meeting. But he doesn't attend any meetings, and neither does the town employee. They are an independent agent. And I believe Mr. Moss, who I don't agree on a lot, but we agreed on this, that this group needs independence from this council in this town. They need to make recommendations and not have us looking over their shoulder. And to have an employee, after so much discussion about the town manager coming off, and I want the town manager to come off. I don't think it needs to be on there. I don't think any town employee needs to be on there. This needs to be an independent board that makes decisions on its own. I can't speak to why people didn't make other nominations, but I kind of concur with Mr. Graham. I mean, I got this Thursday. I started going through my information, and then I finished it up Friday morning. I said, well, wait a minute, I take exception to this on a couple other things, including some names that are on here, and I'd like to see us open back up.
Well, I appreciate your comments, but I find it intriguing that, this has been the process. We have presented the packet, and I've not heard from anyone as of 8:35 tonight, any opposition to the packet till tonight, from any council member.
And Mr. Mayor, and again, I think we're setting ourselves up for something that could be much bigger than, if it's Brent or whoever it is. There's no really procedure in place that tells us what to do. I have the minutes here. It did not say a town employee. It did say hub or no council person should serve on this committee. I really think we need to be careful what road we travel down, calling names. Because again, my interpretation of that list, they're highly qualified individuals. And again, if we had said that in the meeting, that, town employees plus council persons should not serve on these committees, but we didn't say that. It's in the minutes that it's council persons, not town employees. And for years, Mr. Callis has served on many committees, been chairpersons of many, as town manager.
That was the past. We're trying to do transparency now.
I'm speaking at the moment.
I understand this.
Okay, so, again, I just, if we want to go back and look at, again, take him out of the equation. Nothing is written in stone where, this can't be done. If that's the way we're going to do it, then we need to reform and do that.
Mr. Honeycutt, why should Ms. Bagans-Boone be careful about stating the name that's in the packet?
And he
that's
just
part of
read
public
the name.
record. And he's part of the panel.
But
we need to read all the names?
And we're
She had
voting
an
on it.
opposition to one
We're
member
voting on
of the proposed panel, and there is a procedure. We're going to take a vote.
And we have that right. And we're still going back to transparency.
You missed my point.
So I can easily
You
go.
missed my point.
No, I did not. I could easily go to Mr. Morris and say, let's say I own the building right uptown, running the shop uptown. And I go to him and tell him, I need this extra money. And I know you're on the CDA. You being my friend, can I get this from you?
Ms. Bagans-Boone,
that's just an example.
That can happen with any member on this.
Exactly, it could,
That can happen
but
also.
still.
That's my point.
I'll yield to Councilman Taylor. I didn't see his
Councilman
hand.
Taylor?
I don't take exception to what Mr. Honeycutt said as far as the way it was spelled out. And you are correct. It did not say anything about a town employee. However, there are people on this committee, on this council, that were vehemently opposed to Kim Callis continuing on the CDA. I mean, and they were very outspoken, but he should, he's in this and he's in that. This is your opportunity to get town employees off of these committees. It's our opportunity to come clean and have them free and independent of this council, to trust them.
Because again,
And-
Mr. I'm
Excuse
sorry.
me, I
I'm
have
sorry.
the floor.
I'm sorry.
I can't speak for why people didn't nominate people. I don't know. I did, okay? And I stand by my nominee. That's not an issue. But when I got this on Thursday, didn't finish it on Friday, maybe that's on me. But I looked at this group and it concerned me. And I think that we can come up with other names. And I think we have time to do that. And I would ask the council to consider that. And take other nominations.
And, I'll tell you, because again, and I'm not gonna call anybody out, but there are some concerns where I could see potential conflicts with some of the others, but again, where do you pick and choose and draw the line? And that's my whole point. You can't pick and choose.
Question, Mr. Mayor. I'll give it to Mr. Mayor.
Question directed to Kim. The town has a business development manager. If he or she is not serving on the CDA board, the CDA board has the right to ask him or her to come to their meetings for input, correct?
They would approach the town manager and then we would go through that channel, but absolutely, yes. Yes.
Okay, question. Why would they have to approach the town manager if they wanted the CDA, if the CDA wanted a business development manager to be there?
They would just ask, but the appropriate thing to do is come to the town manager, the same way the IDA does that. They come, the town manager, that's part of the town manager's role. There's no reason for the business development manager not to attend, but that's just protocol.
I can understand both sides of this, as far as a conflict and the town manager, blah, blah, blah. And I agree that I've heard nothing about the town employee not being on it. There's nothing with town council. Now, is there a set in gold time limit that we, the council, have to make a decision? Can this be bumped back past June the 1st, like to our next meeting? That would be yes, no. Mr. Callis?
Well, if you take no action, the current board will, I guess, continue on until you do appoint the new members.
It seems to me that we have some questions among council members, and that may be the appropriate avenue for us to take at this time. 30 more days?
Well, currently we have a motion and a second for it.
Question, Mr. Mayor. And one thing that I've been looking at this, and I think you take the town employee out of the equation, okay? Is it in our, and if you'll just give me a second, just give me a little leeway on this. Is there anything in the employee handbook that prohibits a town employee participating in an external organization's board?
No.
Okay.
But
All right, well,
I would like to say something, if you could.
well, let me finish,
Go
if you
ahead.
don't mind. So it's not in the employee handbook. My concern is, and it's not about this particular individual, it is, I feel like if it's going to be a policy that a town employee cannot serve like what we did last month with a town council member, I don't think it can be a unwritten rule. It needs to be a policy, and it needs to be in our employee handbook, and we need a mechanism determining what those organizations are. Is it funded? Is it nonprofits? Are we gonna tell a town employee that they cannot participate with the Yellow Jackets board whom we fund, or the rescue squad, or the fire department, or they can't go and be a vendor at farmer's market because we're funding that? I think we need to be very careful if we're going to limit what town employees can do. That needs to be a blanket policy, very well described, laid out to make sure we don't have any discriminatory retaliation against us. To me, this is bigger than just the CDA. This is gonna go across the board with every town employee. Does this mean that a town employee could not go over to the Yellow Jacket program, for example, and coach his son or daughter in the football program because it could be perceived as a conflict of interest because he's a town employee and we give them funding? So to me, this is past the CDA as far as a policy standpoint. Has nothing to do about who the individual candidate is. And, you know, I think Councilwoman Fagans Boone made the comment about being influenced, and I'm paraphrasing. Well, that could happen with anybody that's appointed to the board. Anybody could try to influence. But if a town supervisor tried to influence a volunteer whom happens to be a town employee or organization, and that was found out and proven, it would be my opinion that that town supervisor should be immediately terminated. They would be violating and overstepping their bounds. So to me, this is a policy issue that we do not have a policy that prevents this.
Mr. Mayor, if I may address that.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna get to.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Tess?
Okay, thank you, sir. So I think the CDA is a little bit different than a lot of the other volunteer organizations because you all actually appoint that board. So this is different than somebody who's a volunteer coach or at the Roritan. This is different because you all actually control that board.
Okay.
Now you may not be doing it directly, but they are your appointees. So you actually control this organization. Mr. Morris is in a unique position because he does economic development work for the town. His role on the board could put him in a conflict of interest. And I would hate to see that for one of your employees have to deal with that. And it is because the influence he would have on that board as well as being an employee. There could be an effort of undue influence on him through the council, through the town manager or directly. And I think it's a bad spot to put Mr. Morris in.
Or any town employee.
Where you all are appointing volunteer boards and funding them, there could be an issue there.
For any employee, not just Mr. Morris. I do not want to single him out. That's not fair. It's just every town employee.
Correct. I'm looking at this from a blanket perspective, but you have to look at each individual organization. I don't think you can put an entire policy on this to chill your employees from volunteering in the community.
So that policy could look something like a council appointed committee.
But again, I think you've got some unique issues like with the fire department.
I just want us to be very careful. If that's going to be the rule, then it needs to be a rule, and it needs to be instituted in that employee handbook. So if we have a new employee, and then all of a sudden they find out they're not able to do something that they may already be doing, they need to know that up front when they accept a job.
But I think we should resist this notion of having to be careful, Mr. Moss, and I appreciate your attention. You always are attentive to policies, and I appreciate that. We've had this discussion. But I don't think we have to be so sensitive. We have nominees, just like we have several other entities which we either make appointments to or provide funding to. I don't think we have to have a policy with respect to employees when we are calling the shots as to who is appointed to the committee. Either they get a yea or nay vote. And that may not be because of the particular quality they have or don't have. There's a vote that has to be taken. And as our council stated, and again, I appreciate your attention to policy. You are always focused on that. And it's a cautious policy. I understand that. But I think there's a real distinction between the organizations to which we appoint membership and there's separate civic organizations to which we welcome engagement by our public employees, whether that be Rotary, fire department, etc.
Mr. Mayor, if I go back and I want to get the points being made. My whole thing, however, is I go back again, there were people who were vehemently opposed to having a town employee on this board. I mean, they were very vocal about it. And now that we're back to that again. Back about 1996, 97, I was appointed to the IDA. I served on that board for about 12 or 13 years. If we needed the town manager, who was John Stockton at the time, We requested him. He may have come 2 or 3 times during his tenure. Earl Horn came 2 or 3 times, but we requested them to come. We weren't reliant on the town employees. If we needed them, we called them, they came. Mr. Callis came maybe 2 or 3 times, not very often, but we were able to conduct IDA business. We put together Hillcrest, which is coming to fruition, which took us about 10 years to do because of a lot of different issues. But if we needed the town, we got the town. If we didn't need them, we went and made our own decisions and carried on. We had a lawyer, just like they're gonna have. But they need to be free and independent from influence of us. Totally free and independent, just like the IDA. And I think that's what we're out to do.
I don't disagree with you at all. I think, at least in my perspective, I won't speak for everyone, the issue that I had is that it was the town manager, and he is on, and in a lot of instances, chairman of so many different groups.
No question.
To me, it was not the fact that he's a town employee as much as it was the town manager, and he is in charge of these groups' budgets. He submits the budgets to us. So it wasn't the employee aspect as much as it was the town manager. And I didn't want to say it that way because it sounds personal. It's not, it's objective.
But Mr. Moss, he has those authorities because he is an employee. So that is the unique characteristic of him. The unique singular characteristic of Mr. Callis that gave this body such caution. And I would echo it for the particular nominee, Mr. Morris, not because he's mean, bad, or wrong, to quote a previous judge I've been before, but because he's paid by the tail.
If I could, one other thing. Mr. Moss, I agree with you, but I'll bet you, and I haven't had this conversation with Mr. Callis, but I bet all these committees that he's on, if you ask him in front of everybody here tonight, do you like being on all those committees?
No. I did not ask to be on any of them.
And see, I think part of it is, and I know this one to be true, it's like, I know that he was in charge, you were on the, what's the committee that does
The Market Square Committee.
the Market Square Committee. And when they need to go from out here to use the exchange, who do they call? They call him. You know, and even when you got off, the person who was in charge had to call him. So sometimes he's on these committees just because it's expedient. But I guarantee you, he doesn't like to be on all these committees. Am I wrong? But Callis, am I wrong?
But he hadn't said,
Am I wrong?
no. But he hadn't said no.
So we have.
He just did. He said,
Over
I'm
the years,
correct.
he hadn't said no, nor has he turned down the chairmanship of these boards. End of argument. It's not argument, that's no.
Okay.
I want to piggyback on what Councilor Moody had to say about, because, I mean, whoever it is, they come to you, Mr. Callis, and you decide at that point, you know, maybe they don't need to attend the meeting, you know, that's not their purview or whatever. I mean, at what point do we say no is no and yes is yes? I mean, you make that determination ultimately, but as business economic development person.
It's still the role of the town manager to do that.
But if you make that call that you don't feel like at that point he doesn't need to go over there, then you would say no.
I can't speak to every situation that would come up, but I can tell you, in the past, we've had meetings with the IDA, and I've invited the business development manager to come to the IDA meetings. I'm going to invite the appropriate people to come to the meeting for the topic at hand. That's what I'll do.
That's a sad thing. I would certainly think that if any organization requested the town manager or the business development manager or the finance, if any organization requested them to be there, that they would certainly be there.
I would certainly think so too.
Without a doubt.
And one thing that, as we're talking, I think he's a driving force of the CDA. I mean, he's the one that's bringing people to the town. He is the one that's bringing industry. He's trying
That's
to
the
bring.
IDA. That's the IDA,
But I mean, as
not
far as
the CDA.
the commercial point.
He's talking about the business development.
The business development person.
He's
He's bringing somebody to us.
That's right.
And that's where I think he, not being so much on the board of that, but he needs to be a driving force of that board.
There needs to
He
be
needs to
involvement.
be very, very, very heavily involved in that board. Not so much on the board to say, because I don't want him to get handcuffed. But I do want him to be a very, very vital person in that organization. I mean, I feel as if he needs to be very much involved, just as much as a board member, but I just don't think he needs to be on the board. I think he could get handcuffed. I think, like I said, he could put him in a bad situation. He could, some overturn. That's just my personal thing.
Could we go back a minute and let you expand on your reasons for wanting to?
Well, I worry about, talking as Howard just said a few minutes ago, it could be, not double jeopardy, but it could be some things where, he could be involved both roles.
I'm sorry, I wasn't speaking to that. I was speaking to the fact that you'd like to see this put off.
Oh, yes, from the very beginning. Yeah, I would like to see, now we've had an opportunity to review the names that are brought before us. I would like to see the council be able to talk amongst themselves and be able to review these names and see how we all agree upon them. And if we need to make some changes before, unfortunately, they were listed, we need to make some changes. We need to, look at doing so. That's just my thought on the matter.
And if I may, Mayor, I understand the concern about discussing these names further. I think we also, though, need to be mindful that at some point a vote has to be taken. And voting no on the panel this evening does not prohibit us from the mayor from submitting further names. My concern is, and I guess this has to do with my career where everything's always put off, always, the discussion will go another month and another month and another month. And we need to remember our duty to get this done in some timely fashion and without a benchmark, which I would say is a yay or nay vote on the current proposed panel. I don't think it enables us to constructively move it forward for the next set of names. It could be we could vote no this evening on the panel, come back in a month and vote on the same names. I don't know what names will be included, but I do think even if it's considered further in the coming months, we need to set benchmarks. And one of the first will be taking a vote on the proposed panel, yes or no, and then bringing up additional names or substitute names if that's appropriate. Because this will go on, my prediction it would go on 4 to 5 months. I would be shocked if we got it done before the end of the year. If this process continues as it's currently proposed, which is, let's discuss it. I wish we could have more discussion, but it's not executive session material. It's public session material. And it also puts us in the position of month after month vetting the current names or substitute names.
Well, I still think we need to address the employee situation regardless of who the employee is. I'm not comfortable singling one out without a policy. Put the policy in place. We did it for council members. We just did it for council members.
I would concur with that.
Okay, let me see here, correct me if I say this wrong, but let's look at it this way. We've got a motion and a second, and we're still in discussion. Okay, I'd like to call it to a vote as roll call. Then if it fails, then another motion can come to the floor as the next direction. To your point, Councilman Taylor, there's a variety of ways, and again, I'm gonna throw out, there's a variety of ways you can make a motion for, and I agree with you, Councilman Taylor, about names, and Councilman Honeycutt, about the names, but it could be one proposal that there are names that the council could agree upon, that the CDA could start in June 1. It may not be the full slate. I might be speaking out of turn, but I'm trying to be proactive here to where we can meet the deadline. So I'll throw that out for council for thought after we vote on the current motion. And I think we had a motion and a second for the current slate. Am I
Just
correct?
one other quick question, and I would assume that the names that were presented, everyone said they would agree to serve.
That is correct. I have personally spoke to every one of them. From an energetic standpoint, knowledge standpoint, and participation standpoint, yes.
Now, I believe the way our motion is on the complete slate.
Yes, as
Not
presented.
individual names.
That is
And
correct.
I assume that's what you wanted,
That-
the way this is.
The way this is presented is this slate of nominees for the CDA board for these terms, okay? And again, to the point of everybody, as Councilman Taylor stated, the packet was handed out. Mr. Estes, I would ask just a generic question. Have you had any phone calls from any council members since the packet's gone out?
No, sir.
About any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, and were you given the packet when, Mr. Estes? When were you made aware of this packet?
Thursday, I believe.
Okay, but for the record, there's been no comments or any phone calls from any of the council members?
No, sir. I just called you.
Okay. And for the record, I've had no contact from anyone from council since the packet went out on Wednesday. Okay?
I will say the only phone call I've had was from Mr. Callis expressing concern about one name.
Yeah, and I got that today as well. I'm not sure if
I got
anybody
that
else got
today.
one. I got that today.
All right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I would like the motion to be restated.
Okay.
I make a motion that we accept the slate of officers as presented by our mayor. And I also ask that if everyone was ready to step up to the plate, and they are, they've been vetted and are ready to move forward.
Okay.
And I second that.
Okay. Any further discussion, council? Good discussion. Okay, Anna, roll call.
Fabian,
No.
Graham,
No.
Honeycutt,
Yes.
Lester,
No.
Moody,
This is a no-win. No.
Moss,
Yes.
Ben Taylor,
No.
Joseph Taylor.
No.
Okay? We have that resolved. Now, council, how would you like to see the next step? Because this was the mayor's attempt, so I'm looking for guidance from this council on the next step. And I wonder, if I may quote you, Councilman Taylor, this could be a moving target. Could be a moving
Mr. Mayor, I
target.
don't think I don't think it needs to be. I
Okay.
think we could go ahead with this current select board of officers continuing until we resolve the situation, but I think we come back and bring it and vote on it at the next, anybody wants to submit names, give them a timeline tonight that they must submit names to you by, and be your pleasure.
Okay,
And if there are any other names, they are to submit those names to you.
okay.
And you set the deadline. If they don't do it, that's on
Well, I've tried. So
He's done it one time.
So let me ask you this, and again, let's be productive. So let's go forward. So I get 12 names. What does this council want from me if there are 12 names and there are only 7 seats?
Well, that's why.
And from the
That's why
advice.
we make the big money. We'll have to make the votes.
Well, you know,
I'm man enough to do that. I'll tell you the people that I nominate.
Well, you're one member, sir. You're one member, but let me finish. But again, to your point, if there are more than one, again, at the advice of our town attorney, we looked at it as a slate. I mean, there's been thought put into this. It was looked as a slate as a whole.
Correct.
So I want to go back and correct me, Mr. Estes, if I again say it wrong. There still could be a motion brought to the floor tonight in some format that would accept or not accept. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can come back again to your point, Councilman Taylor, I can come back next month. But again, there could be 12 names. Does the council vote as an individual? I don't think we want to go down that path, but that's my personal opinion.
No.
I think it's, I go back to Councilman Moss, I mean, precedent, other committees or whatever. So.
I have a question.
Yes.
Mr. Estes, or Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, we come back next month. It's the same slate of officers.
Well, I mean.
And that very well could be a distinct possibility.
Or it could be very distinct, it could be more than 7.
Right.
I could see more, I could see it being more than 7, but I want you to finish, I'm sorry, Councilman.
I'm just saying, and back to Mr. Taylor's point, since we come up with the same slate, and you're comfortable with that, because this is your job, appointing these positions. I don't want to do your job, but it's the same set, the same names. I mean, we're gonna push it to June or July, and I am not going to get in the place of picking out a name or two. That is not gonna happen. I'm not gonna set myself up to lose in that round. It's just not gonna happen. If I presented it, the vote was a slate, it should be a slate.
Yes, Council.
And this is for our county attorney. Would there be a legal obstacle to taking another vote at our next meeting, or the next one, whenever we're presented with a formal slate from the mayor, taking a vote, and if it's a yes vote, fine, that's the panel. If it's a no vote, then subsequently, in the same meeting, accepting nominations from the floor, or taking a vote on each individual member. We take votes on individual membership to all sorts of appointed bodies in this group. This would be no different. Would that be permitted?
Yes, sir. So the body operates by motion. So you all could make a motion. I know that, I think that most angst was about Mr. Morris's position. You all could make a motion right now to vote for the presented slate, except for the one bit, and have one vacancy, and take it up at your June meeting. And give him names, Mr. Mayor, and then he can make an appointment, and you all can vote on that appointment to fill that one last spot.
Question.
Okay.
But going back to my point, or my question, it's only a question. How are we going to restrict participation when it's not a policy? I go back. I'm okay if he's not on the CDA board. That's not my perspective. My perspective is put it in writing, make a rule, it's done. That's my whole perspective. If it's not a rule, then, the mayor has done his due diligence. He was charged with this. He did his due diligence. He presented a slate, and then we voted down. If it's a rule that he cannot participate, any employee, then we won't nominate an employee. It fixes itself. But until it's a rule, how can I in good faith sit here and vote somebody down on a rule that doesn't exist? It's kind of like with the fire department, well, it's protocol, but it's not a rule. It's a rule, but it's not in writing. That's not how you operate. It's not how I'm gonna operate.
So, yes. Mr. Mayor, I would just say that the council is a legislative body. You cannot bind future councils. So you might have a rule that is a guidance, but it cannot be binding on future councils.
And they could change it. They could change it.
They could violate the policy if they wanted to, or change the rule.
They could change the policy.
But they don't have to abide by it at each meeting.
But that's up to them.
But they could
Future
change
council,
it.
that's correct.
That's why they get elected just like we do. If it's in a different situation and they feel like they need to change the policy, they sit here and make a motion and they change it. No problem with that. No argument with that at all.
Councilman Todd?
I think as long as we're making those decisions, we can put those stipulations. We stipulated that we didn't want Kim Callis on the board.
I agree.
Well, we can stipulate that we don't want any town employee, because we have that situation now, as everybody's aware of. And it's not a good situation. And, this body can stipulate, as you said previously, that no town employee can be appointed to this type of board.
And that's my whole point.
And that's fine.
Let's do it.
Well, let's do it. They can't do it. Okay. I don't know if we need to write down the policy, but we've always done it.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, we have two separate terms that we're voting on. Mr. Estes and or Kim, would there be anything to prevent this council from voting on a 2-year term? And if it passes, those 4 would be serving until 2023. And then we can come back possibly in June to vote on the 4-year terms. Can they be separated?
Mr. Moody, the body operates by motion.
I will tell you, I think that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for the CDA, because you've got a couple of senior people on 4-year one. And I think that'd be a little problematic.
And one is president.
And one is the,
Well, president-elect.
He is the vice president. He's not the president-elect, but very likely, but he is the vice president. So, and I think they should be allowed to elect their own.
Which raises another question. As I look at this, what was the determining factor? Who's going to serve the 2-year terms and who's going to serve the 4-year term?
Part of it was myself, from my discretion and my thought and my conversation. The ones on the 4-year term, because they were there, and they had the experience and they were comfortable doing it again.
One of them isn't.
One of them is not. I said 2 of the 3, okay? The other ones were called new, but at the end of the day, it was my discretion. At the end of the day, it was my discretion on the length of term. I made that determination, and I discussed that with each individual one, and they were okay with it. So at the end of the day, I made that determination. Recommendation.
You sure you discussed it with all of them?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And again, you were challenged, again, Mayor, you were challenged with doing this. This is your job. You can't make it up. You just can't make it up.
Any other questions, discussions? Where do we go from here, council? Need some guidance? Or no action is none done?
I'd say we can go to the next items on the agenda.
Yeah. Okay, so
I would think that we would come back next month. Is there a time limit on this?
Well, the articles of incorporation have been adopted and filed.
And that
so
means
there
what?
there is that these would be the dates.
Okay.
The articles of incorporation have been amended and adopted and filed. That was done in March.
Well, they'll need to be amended again, won't they?
Pardon?
They'll need to be amended again because we won't meet until June.
Well, yeah, I don't know. That's a question for the legal counsel for the CDA. It says that the appointments will be effective that, and there is no reason, I guess, if you appoint people on June the 13th, it can't be effective immediately, and then you go forward.
I mean, it's not ideal. But
The situation's not ideal.
If council cannot come to an agreement on the appointees to voted on, then that'll be a council for the association's issue.
Yeah.
And to Councilman Graham's point, Mr. Taylor, do you recall when you made your call to me about your nominee? Do you recall that date?
No, it's been at least 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago.
It was more like in February.
Okay.
I've got the date.
Been a while.
So, okay. To your point, I just want you to know this discussion has been going on. Our conversation was in February.
My only thing is there ever a point in time, I know we had a retreat, but is there ever a point in time, I've asked this over and over again, I know, that we can all sit down and discuss these things and brainstorm and come up with ideas off each other to make a productive movement in the right direction? I just don't know.
As long as it's done in public, I think we can. But we can't go behind closed doors to do this. This is for public consumption.
We're kind of doing it right now.
They have a right.
You know,
No, we're not.
you know.
We're not behind closed
No,
doors.
I mean, we're discussing it now.
Yeah,
To his
yeah.
point. We're
You know,
doing
that's,
this,
you know,
we're doing what
you know, you
he's
start
asking.
throwing names out and things of that nature. I mean, I don't want to call any ill will. I don't want to hurt feelings. That's not what we're here for. I agree. That's not where we need to be, and that's not what we need to do. That's why I was just asking if that was,
Mr. Mayor,
what we could do.
regarding this matter, I would think that we, the council, can come back to another meeting before June the 1st. We can have a special session if needed to again look at these terms that have been presented. And if you come up with, if we or you come up with any other individuals, they can be put on there for us to consider. And we need to have a special meeting as a council to make these appointments. We can certainly do so between now and June the 1st.
We just need 3 days, 3 working days
That is correct.
to advertise properly.
That is correct.
And we also understand that several people had several different names. Those names would have to be discussed in public and a vote would be taken with those names. But that's what we get paid for, to make those decisions.
And would we talk about possibly going back to Councilman Moss, a pilot or a procedure that, and again, I would also like to see that implemented to protect all of our employees.
To answer, for the purpose of being symptomatic, that we would handle one at a time, do the appointment to the CDA with the special session, and then address in June the policy, and perhaps send that to the policy committee to come up with something to do. Had to word it at that time. Don't put too much.
Right, but we wouldn't want to do that before we voted on the slate of offices. If it was presented again, like we presented it tonight.
I would go back again, I don't think we need a policy. We're in control of that. We make those decisions.
My opinion.
That's part of my job. I have to make those decisions. It's not, you can't put everything in policy. And sometimes you have to put your big boy britches on and make those decisions.
And when you don't have policies, we're gonna have we open the door to inconsistencies, discrepancies, the lack of transparency, and we could put ourselves in a position to deny one employee and approving the next. And I do not want to be.
I disagree with you.
Well, that's fine. We normally disagree anyway.
We do.
According to you, so it doesn't matter.
Yes, we do.
Right, so, to Councilman Moody's point, no, the motion was defeated. Is it council's wish that we schedule a special meeting?
Well, I think he needs to give us a deadline, get the names, and then say, hey, I got my names, let's have a meeting.
Well, today is May the 9th, so I'm just concerned about us being able to advertise and do this properly because we have the Memorial Day weekend coming up, and so is there a date by which, I'd like to see us put something out there so that we know we can inform the public that there will be a special council meeting on this date. And,
well, I think the mayor gets that discretion to set the date.
Yes.
well,
Hey, I'm flexible with the council. Just whenever y'all want to meet.
I mean, we just need a date for you to have the special meeting, and so that we can advertise it, and then people will know that they need to have names in to you, whatever date you say in advance of that special meeting, so that they can be communicated to others.
Okay, council? How about 2 weeks from today?
That would be the 23rd.
That will be May 23rd.
What time, Mayor?
What works for everybody? I'm flexible.
7.
Okay.
That'd be good. Yeah. I think that'd be good while it's working, especially Mr. Taylor might be in court.
What time?
Thank you, Mr. Honeycutt.
What time did you say, Mr. Taylor?
7 o'clock.
I propose 7. Mr. Honeycutt and I agree on that.
I would agree with that.
Okay, at 7,
23rd now.
at 7 o'clock
Motion
on
to
May the
that
23rd. Now, for my clarification, so technically speaking, again, individual council members can just bring those names that night?
No,
I'm
I think we should have given the name to you before that night, so you can come up with the slate, I think,
I think,
All right, Councilman.
So that there are no surprises, I would suggest that you set a date by which you have all the names so that you can then send them to all the council members and they know exactly who they are, and then they can all be discussed on May the 23rd.
Mayor, would May 16 be appropriate to be the deadline for you to receive all of our names, so we do this in week blocks?
Okay.
And that 1 week from today.
All right, so 1 week from today at 5 o'clock p.m. will be the cutoff.
May 16th at 5 p.m.
Yeah, will be the cutoff for the list.
And then would those names be shared
you and
with
I will get
council?
with you and we will share it with council. We will send it out in an email to the council members, so they will have 1 week to review the names and have their positions and thoughts and comments for the May 23rd meeting.
Okay, so on the 17th, we would mail those?
Yes, ma'am, on that day.
Can we get the clerk to read all that back, please?
So, Mr. Mayor, So is the expectation of council that the mayor would produce another slate of candidates for the appointment for the night of the 23rd? Or are we going to vote on each individual's position?
What, I think that's a great question, because to this point, my understanding, listening is the individuals.
I just won't be at that meeting. I would rather see it presented as a slate. I'm not gonna send anybody out. That's just me. I can't speak for everybody
I
else.
understand.
You're setting yourselves up for a loss.
So could we get a motion that says we will have a special meeting on May the 23rd?
Well, I think before we do that, we need to get it clarified on what we're gonna do on the 23rd. Are we going to listen to a slate, or are we gonna listen to an individual?
Okay. Yeah, I guess you can.
And what reason are we gonna give them, or what reason would you, or the council directly give them that they weren't qualified to serve on that?
I don't think we need to give.
I'm asking a question. I am practicing my First Amendment right of speech, and as an elected official, asking a question to our mayor. I have not addressed Ms. Luster or Mrs. Moon.
Well, and under discussion that Howard and I have had, I mean, again, the format is to present a slate.
And that's what I thought.
So it addresses the concern of the individuality. It does, you know.
What is Mr. Estes' legal opinion? Do we vote on it name by name, or do we vote on it as a slate?
You can do it either way you want.
What is your recommendation as our attorney?
I think a slate would be a lot advantageous and efficient and avoids having names being turned down.
I think slate would be appropriate.
So,
and then if you come up with a slate and there's somebody that council doesn't agree on, you do it again.
Very simple.
Very simple.
Okay. So, Councilman Moody, so what is your expectation on the 23rd is who is going to present the slate?
I would think that the mayor would present the slate.
And if I present another one that's not approved by this council, then what's the next step?
I'm not legal opinion, but we would keep going through it until we get it.
The body acts by motion.
The body acts by motion, majority rule.
Okay.
So I make a motion that we meet as a council, on the 23rd, is that right?
Yes.
23rd at 7 o'clock, to receive the slate of officers presented by our mayor. At that point in time, there will be a motion, a second, and discussion, and we will take the vote then.
There's a motion.
I made the motion. That was a motion. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Second.
Okay, just one clarity point, Mr. Estes. So on the night of the 23rd, I present a slate to council. And the council decides that that is not the appropriate slate, okay? Is that all the business that can be conducted that night, and then we have to go to another meeting on another slate?
Well, you set the agenda. And so what I would recommend doing is that it sounds like council's asked for your direction on a slate.
Mm-hmm.
If the slate fails, there could be a motion then to take up each individual spot, person by person, in nominations.
Or there also could be a motion to accept a certain number of the slate, and then the council would vote on that modified version of the slate.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But that also could have been done tonight, if so chosen.
It still could be.
Okay. So we have a motion. Did we have a second to Mr. Honeycutt?
I think Councilman Moody.
Yes. I think he did, and then I asked for any other discussion. Is there any other discussion?
I'm reflecting on what our attorney just stated.
Yeah, I wanted him to restate it because it's the second time he's restated.
It appears to me that the entire concerns is regarding the town employee. A town employee serving on a CDA board, since this is what we're talking about. So we could possibly go ahead and confirm the other 6 members and then come back with the 7th member at a later date. Is that correct?
Body acts by motion, yes, sir.
Body acts by motion. kind of lost right now.
Mr. Honeycutt, do you stick with your motion?
I stick with my motion. You know, again, we've only brought up one name tonight, and that's been about an employee.
You answered my question, my second remains.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call, Anna.
Bacon Spoon.
Yes.
Graham.
Yes.
Honeycutt.
Yes.
Luster.
Yes.
Moody.
Yes.
Moss.
Yes.
Ben Taylor.
Yes.
Joseph Taylor.
Yes. That's a yes, my mic was off, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make the motion that we submit to our policy committee in reference to town employees serving on the CDA board. And I would like to see that meeting happen before our vote on May 23rd. I think it would give every council member some clarity as far as who to nominate and how to vote that night.
And we have a second? Any discussion?
I would take exception to that. I think this body is empowered by the voters. I don't think there's any need for that. We make those decisions. So I would be opposed to that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call, Anna.
Bacon Spoon.
No.
Graham.
Yeah.
Honeycutt.
Yes.
Luster.
Yes.
Moody.
Yes.
Moss.
Yes.
Ben Taylor.
No.
Joseph Taylor.
No.
Motion carried.
5
5 to
ayes,
3.
3 noes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Other business.
You gonna send out a date for that meeting?
I will call and try to schedule that
Thank you. I
meeting.
know it's challenging. Thank you so much, Ann.
Council, I would entertain a motion to convene in closed session to discuss the following as permitted by Virginia Code Section 2-2-3711A, subsection 1, personnel matters involving police staffing.
Mayor, could you modify that motion so that it's involving adequacy of police staffing?
Okay, I'm sorry.
And for clarification also, is this about a specific individual, or what is this in reference to? It says staffing issues, but is it a specific personnel issue?
Adequacy of the staffing of the police department. So it involves the assignment of responsibilities, the performance of those officers. So there's a further code section if you wanted to. Are you uncomfortable, Mr. Honeycutt?
I just wanted clarification.
Yeah, and necessarily to talk about the adequacy of the staffing, we're going to have to talk about scheduling the performance of the officers, the morale of those officers, and the assignment and scheduling of their duties, which is all covered under E1 for personnel.
That's a code section that spells that out.
Well, there's a further on in that code section, there's a section 19, which talks about personnel deployments, operational plans, and protocols.
Okay.
Specifically a public safety concern.
Okay.
Did I have
and if Mr. Honeycutt, if you would feel more comfortable, if you want the motion modified to reflect that additional code section, I'm perfectly fine with that.
No, you're all, that's what we're paying you for, so if you say we're protected by doing this.
Okay.
Okay, let me restate the motion. I would entertain a motion to convene in closed session to discuss the following as permitted by Virginia Code Section 2-2-3711, personnel matters involving adequacy of police staff. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
distribute these?
You don't want it? Okay.
Thank you, though.
I'll wait till after the meeting.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Council, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn the closed session and to reconvene in open session.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we are now in open session. I would entertain a motion to certify the closed session by affirming that while in closed session, there was no formal action taken, and that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements were discussed, and only public business matters identified in the motions convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered. I would entertain a motion to certify this. Roll call, Anna.
Fagan Spoon?
Yes.
Graham?
Yes.
Honeycutt?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Moody?
Yes.
Moss?
Yes.
Ben Taylor?
Yes.
Joseph Taylor?
Yes.
Council? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.